I became a student at Penn Law because in my senior year at Penn State, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had a lot of interest in securities, but I didn't see myself as a salesman. And I had a lot of interest in insurance. I had a very interesting insurance professor at Penn State, but I didn't see myself again as a salesman. So I decided that those were not careers that I wanted to pursue, and I thought that law was a possibility for me, and it was a way to make a living. So I applied to Penn Law, and at that time I was not in a position to leave Philadelphia because of a marital commitment, and I applied to Penn Law, and I was admitted. And so I came, and I remember the first semester being total, absolute confusion in my mind. As I recall, there was virtually nothing of clarity for me in the first year, or at least the first semester at Penn Law. I remember being totally perplexed about Paul Mishkin's class. He was teaching judicial procedure about Trover and Trover on the case, and I could never understand the difference. And I had torts course with Clarence Morris, who was very good, and a agency course with Philip Meacham, which was also very good. And I guess the highlight of my first year, one of the highlights of my first year, was a contract course with Clark Bice, who unquestionably was one of the outstanding professors that I had during my term at the University of Pennsylvania Law School. I remember the first day or two, his talking about, I think the case was Armstrong versus McGee, and I think it was the damages for a hairy hand or something like that. And it was just a wonderful experience for me. And I owe a lot to Clark Bice. I thought he taught me how to think, how to discipline my thinking, and I learned a great deal from him, although frequently his dialogue was above me intellectually. But I thought I benefited significantly from him. I'm told, I don't know if it's true or not, that the professor in the movie The Paper Chase was patterned after Clark Bice after he left Penn and went to Harvard. And if that's true, it didn't look anything like Professor Kingsfield in The Paper Chase, but he was a wonderful teacher and really taught one how to think. My greatest memories of my time here at Penn Law, I always felt that I was overwhelmed and not really understanding what was going on. I guess I understood enough to get by, more than get by, but I did satisfactory work. I had some wonderful teachers here. I remember Ray Bradley, who taught judicial procedure and who was just a wonderful practical teacher, and one who I thought brought to the classroom a great deal of practical experience. And I learned a lot from him. What has struck me, or what has stayed with me since I left the law school, I thought I learned how to think in a disciplined fashion, in a cognitive fashion. And it certainly has helped me in my career, and I've benefited tremendously from my law school experience here. It enabled me to provide for my family and send my children to school. One of my daughters just recently graduated from Penn Law School, and it was a wonderful experience. And I just can't say enough wonderful things. I'm not being paid for this promotional interview, but I just can't say enough good things about it. It enabled me to enjoy a wonderful, wonderful standard of living, and for which I am most appreciative. Professors, I thought that Louis Schwartz was great. I had Louis Schwartz for government regulation of business, which I guess today would be characterized as an antitrust case or something of that sort. I mentioned Clark Bice before. I remember Professor Keaty teaching trusts. Was basically a regurgitation course. I didn't feel that was as probative or taught me as much as I learned from people such as Clark Bice or Ray Bradley or Paul Mishkin or some of the other professors that I had here. The campus has changed significantly. it is vastly different. When I came here, there was just one building, and it didn't have air conditioning. So that in the summertime or springtime, when you opened up the windows, you had the enjoyable experience of hearing the trucks run down 34th Street with their horns blaring and all the noise of construction and taxis and that kind of thing. And of course, it was unbearably hot. There were some clubs when I was here. I belonged, I believe, to a club called McKean, which was basically Jewish students, but as far as I know, it was not limited to Jewish students, but most of them were Jewish students. There was another club called Sharswood, which I thought belonged basically to the students who were from the main line, and to my knowledge, I don't think there were any Jewish students in Sharswood, and it was sort of understood that you didn't apply to Sharswood, and if you were Jewish, which I am, that you would apply to McKean, and maybe there were one or two others. There were no, that I recall, there were no LLM aspects of Penn Law School at that time. We had in our class, I believe we had 3 women. 2 of them, I think, went on to graduate. I think the 3rd one dropped out. My numbers may be off by 1 or 2, but I'm not sure. But I think that was the limit of the number of women. There were, as I recall, we had 1 minority in our class. We had 1 African American, Hardy Williams, who I knew from Penn State because he had been a basketball player. Not that I was, but we were in the same class or something at Penn State, and I knew Hardy. He was an African American. He died a number of years ago. He went on to be a political figure here in Pennsylvania in the state legislature. I don't recall that there were any other African Americans. I don't recall that there were any Asians. I don't recall that there were any Latinos. That's the extent of what I recall.